Nowadays man has made great progress in all parts of science, but the question of many people who are interested in knowledge is that when did these discoveries start? This video is related to the first part of history of science. We examine the history of the beginning of science till to the Industrial Revolution in Europe. At the end of this video, some of your questions will be answered. According to the Big Bang Theory, about 13.8 billion years have passed since the creation of the universe. And this is while the age of our solar system and Earth, as a very small part of the universe, is estimated to be about 4.6 billion years. The first signs of life, which are actually known as single organisms, appeared on Earth about 4 billion years ago. Regarding the origin of humans, the fossils show that the first species of humans branched off from a species of chimpanzee and are called Australopithecus. It shows that this species of humans lived on Earth about 3 to 4 million years ago. From about 300,000 years ago, with the continuation of evolution, modern humans or modern Homo sapiens live on Earth, which can be called the time of birth and the beginning of knowledge on planet Earth. Of course, even before this, humans were able to use their minds to make tools for hunting or creating shelter for themselves, which can be called the discovery of fire and its use by Homo erectus. But knowledge in its true sense actually started with the emergence of modern humans. If we are going to examine the history of the emergence of science properly, we should look at the history of human civilization, where ancient civilizations such as the Sumerian, Egyptian, Indus and Maya civilizations were formed in several parts of the Earth from 4,500 years before Christ. Sumerian civilization. The Sumerian civilization was formed in the ancient Mesopotamia region, somewhere near present-day Iraq. The people of this civilization invented the first lines for writing. They started and developed agriculture and irrigation in this area. The invention of the system of measuring time based on 60 or sexagesimal, and the invention of the wheel and legal code system are the work of the Sumerians. The Sumerians also produced complex works of art, including cylinder seals, pottery, and sculptures. Egypt civilization. The Egyptian civilization that emerged on the banks of the Nile is actually famous for its special buildings and construction of pyramids. The Egyptians were the inventors of the hieroglyphic script and also created many works of art and architecture of the time. As mentioned, other famous civilizations such as the Indus civilization in the northern region of India and today's Pakistan, and the Maya in Latin America, including regions such as Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, each of which had scientific, artistic, and cultural advances, but based on research archaeologists of Sumerian and Egyptian civilizations. And in fact the knowledge that these civilizations had reached appeared in Greece around 800 years before Christ. Greece civilization. The ancient Greeks made significant contributions to the field of science, laying the groundwork for many scientific principles and methodologies that continue to influence modern science. They made many advances in fields such as medicine, mathematics, astronomy, physics, and fluid science, as well as in philosophy and culture, and as we mentioned, their science became the basis for modern science. Greece became a place for the emergence of scientists such as Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates in philosophy, mathematics, and natural science. Thales, Euclid, and Pythagoras in mathematics. Archimedes in mathematics and physics, and fluid mechanics, and Socrates in medicine. The researches and many theories of these scientists were later noticed and reviewed by European scientists, and thus science entered the Renaissance era. In ancient times, and until the era after Christ, the achievements of the Greek civilization were used by other nations and civilizations such as the Romans, Iranians, and Muslims, which led to many improvements at that time for the people of the Middle East and Europe, and especially in the Middle East. It was the instrument for the emergence of many scientists in mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, and medicine. Middle Ages era. The Middle Ages began with the demise of the Roman Empire and the domination of Christianity over the government and politics of Europe. This time corresponds to around the 5th century AD to the beginning of the Renaissance, i.e., the 15th century. During this period, science and scientific studies were generally under the control of the Church in such a way that many scientific texts were allowed to be published based on religious theories and according to the taste of the Church. At that time, there was no university as we know it today, and teaching was usually done in churches or centers affiliated to churches. In fact, the system of religious governance did not allow research and thinking outside the framework of religion. At the end of the 15th century, the existence of a scientist like Leonardo da Vinci, whose actions were a mixture of science and art, actually became the primary ground for great changes. Perhaps, in fact, da Vinci's existence revived the thirst for research in scientists after him, such as Galileo. Of course, the story of the Italian mathematician and astronomer Galileo Galilei, who lived in the 16th century, is a clear example of restrictions imposed on scientists in that period. Galileo spent more than 20 years of his life studying and observing the rotation of the Earth, and the position of the stars and planets in the sky, and finally came to the conclusion that contrary to the belief of the Church, and the writings of the Bible, which said that the Earth is the center of the universe and the Sun and the planets revolve around it, it is the Earth that revolves around the Sun along with a number of other planets. The same set that we call the solar system today. The publication of this opinion by Galileo caused him to be questioned by the Church, and forced to confess in order to say that all my statements and writings are lies. Before that, a similar situation had arisen for Nicolaus Copernicus. By studying the works of Greek and Iranian scientists and with the help of mathematical equations, Copernicus discovered the rotation of the Earth around itself and around the Sun. He also discovered that the orbit of the Earth and other planets of the solar system around the Sun is an ellipse, with the Sun at one of its centers. The disclosure of these findings by Copernicus caused him to be expelled from the class and banned from continuing his education. Renaissance and Enlightenment. But finally, at the end of the 16th century, when the people of Europe wanted change and development, and with the intellectual changes of some religious people, the strong wall of the Church's rule slowly broke down, and many intellectual and practical movements began in Europe. This time, which is known as the Renaissance period and the beginning of the Enlightenment, caused the emergence of new thinkers and scientists such as René Descartes, Isaac Newton, Blaise Pascal, Carl Friedrich Gauss, and many thinkers and philosophers such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Immanuel Kant and Friedrich Hegel. Those who actually caused important theoretical and practical effects to start the era of Industrial Revolution and modernism. Before the Industrial Revolution. It's worth mentioning that the growing process of science, which began at the beginning of the Renaissance, caused many advances and discoveries in the field of basic science and medicine, and entered a new stage in the middle of the 18th century with the invention of the steam engine by James Watt. This stage is called the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution caused the creation of new tools and methods in the production of equipment, machines, and materials needed by humans, and in fact, it was the beginning of the modern era in the history of human life. It is very interesting to think that after millions of years and primitive cave-dwelling life, mankind was able to open the gates of modern life in the 18th century and step on the beginning of this long road.